guidance, may we be a beacon and a blessing to the world. We say together, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
I was talking to my boys about New Year's resolutions, trying to explain in concise and direct language to my 4 and 6-year-olds about how on the first day of a secular New Year we set goals and make promises to ourselves for the coming year, which quickly devolved into them saying things like, this year I'm going to convince mommy to buy us a Nintendo Switch, which is really my fault because I should have seen that coming. But the thing about kids is you have to be really precise and really exact. We ended up, though, having a really good conversation about what it means to make a promise to ourselves, a promise that isn't necessarily about a thing, but about the people we want to become in the year to come. It might relate to how we approach a specific kind of situation, how we treat our friends, or how we treat ourselves. Our resolutions are aspirational goals that ask us to think about what it will take to become better versions of ourselves. Now, didn't we just do that on Rosh Hashanah? My kids asked. Why, yes, you did. I'm so glad you remembered, I said in reply. But the thing about making goals for ourselves is that we don't only have to do it once a year. So because this is the closest Shabbat to our secular New Year, I want to think with you about what a resolution means. One of my colleagues has a pretty great tradition of offering a series of potential New Year's resolutions based on the weekly Torah portion. So tonight we're going to look at the final Torah portion of Berezin, Parshat Vayechi, through this lens. Parshat Vayechi opens with Jacob summoning his beloved son Joseph to his bedside on the final days of his life, and he asks for Joseph's oath that he will honor his father's Jacob's burial wishes. Jacob asks Joseph to treat him what is called chesed ve'emet, with faithful kindness, which is our first resolution, to treat others with faithful kindness. We should always strive to treat people in our lives with kindness and with care. But here it asks us to go actually one step further. In this section of Torah, Jacob, as we said, has asked Joseph to promise that his burial wishes will be carried out. And this is a promise that Jacob asks Joseph to make without ever knowing if it will be carried through. And it's a promise that Joseph makes without any expectation of reciprocity. Jacob will never be able to return the favor. Joseph promises chesed, or kindness, without expectation of chesed in return. In the world that we live in, it's easy for our interactions, I think, to become transactional. We know that if we're kind to somebody, they may be more likely to do something kind for us in return. A resolution to treat other people with true chesed, on the other hand, invokes something higher and holier, a promise to aim toward a selfless kindness, the kind without any strings attached to it. The second resolution that we can see from this portion is about blessings. Immediately after Joseph makes this vow, this promise to his father, he brings his sons Ephraim and Manasseh to their grandfather's bedside and he offers them a blessing. Effectively, Jacob makes them a part of his immediate genealogical line, which is why Ephraim and Manasseh actually become the names of tribes. So that's interesting. The only mention of Ephraim and Manasseh before this moment is a few chapters ago, first when they were born. And now they're at Jacob's bedside receiving this blessing. And as we read, we have to wonder why these two boys merited a blessing, because there's no reason yet given in the Torah. And yet they are blessed. And because of this, it has become a tradition through the generations for parents to offer their children a blessing each Shabbat. And for generations, we've blessed our boys. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. And for our girls, we say, may God make you to be like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, our matriarchs. Rabbi Richard Levy, Zichrono Livracha, was one of the most really thoughtful and compassionate teachers that I had the privilege of learning with. And he always read this particular piece of Torah with beauty and insight that I try to bring into my children's lives every day. He taught, just as Ephraim and Manasseh received their merit not through any acts of their own, but only because they were alive and were descendants of Jacob. So Jewish boys do not need to feel that their parents' love is dependent upon their accomplishments. They are beloved just because they are children. For Jewish girls, however, who might be inclined to society's prejudices to think that because they're girls they need not set their sights very high, the blessing actually holds them up to the highest models. May God make you like the greatest women the Torah knows, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Our second resolution, therefore, tonight is to be able to resolve to offer abundant blessings to people in our lives. We need not fight for blessings, as have other examples in Genesis set for us. There are more than enough blessings to go around. And just as Ephraim and Manasseh are blessed not because of any particular accomplishment, but because of who they are, so may we offer blessings to become the best versions of themselves for each other. Later on in the Torah portion, after Jacob dies, Joseph's brothers are worried that Joseph is now going to pursue revenge for selling him into slavery. They feared that perhaps he actually showed kindness for his father's sake, not because he really had forgiveness in his heart. And in the last section of this portion, we read Joseph's brothers, seeing that their father was dead, now said, "Perhaps Joseph still bears us enmity and intends to repay us for all the harm we inflicted on him." But Joseph here simply says, "Have no fear, for am I in place of God? Though you intended me harm, God intended it for good, in order to accomplish what is now the case, to keep numerous people alive. Now therefore have no fear, I will provide for you and your little ones." So what should our resolution be in this coming year here? To make peace and to find reconciliation. Sometimes the people in our lives will hurt us, because loving people means being vulnerable. And sometimes that can lead to misunderstanding and to hurt feelings. But Joseph here teaches us something pretty profound. The magnitude of one's suffering, bless you, and certainly Joseph suffered greatly, does not mean that we can't forgive and that we cannot make peace. In fact, it's the opposite. We live in a world where misunderstanding and misinterpretation abounds in our lives. A world where our most common form of communication happens in email or text messages and social media. And those avenues mean an even greater potential for blurring lines of communication, for hurting people unintentionally, and therefore holding grudges and cutting off lines of communication as a result. But what if we instead resolve to emulate Joseph in the coming year, to give people the benefit of the doubt, and to actively look for avenues of reconciliation in order to bring greater peace into our own lives and into the world around us? The world, I think, would feel a little bit less broken if we entered a new year intent on creating more peace in our relationships. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of the overarching resolutions that we see in this portion, and that is giving the gift of clarity and transparency. At the beginning of our parsha and at its conclusion, we see first Jacob and then Joseph sharing their end-of-life wishes with their children. Both ask to be buried not in Egypt but with their ancestors, and they ask their children to promise to carry out those wishes. In my years of being a rabbi, I have found that one of the greatest gifts that people can give to their loved ones is clarity and transparency in all things. We are not mind readers, and we can't expect others to know things that we don't share. And it comes all the more clear and more important when it comes to end of life. Sharing our wishes for medical care, for the use of life-saving medical treatment, for burial and funeral and shiva. They save our loved ones from having to guess at what we want and from engaging in arguments about what they think we would have wanted. And in this year, I want to encourage all of us to resolve to think more deeply about this and to consider taking inspiration from Joseph and from Jacob and sharing those wishes directly with your loved ones. And what does actually feel a little bit like a shameless plug, I will add that I am teaching a course, Living in Ethical Wills, in February here at Temple and in partnership with Federation. So if you're interested in learning what it means to emulate Jacob and Joseph and to share that clarity and that transparency with your loved ones, I invite you to come join me. As we enter the new year, The final piece of wisdom that I'll leave you with about this portion is that its name is Vayechi, which means, and he lived. And in this year, we will encounter challenges, and our resolutions will not become exactly what we had in mind. And yet, we will live. We will live full and beautiful lives, not in spite of those challenges, but probably because of them and what they serve to teach us. And so we say, as we end a book of Torah, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazak. Be strong, and may we be strengthened. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.